Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Summers. Today you're going to be working on social studies and you're focusing on Spanish missions. And the learning target is right there. You're going to focus on understanding what a Spanish mission was and the impact that they had. So, we are going to be reading the textbook pages 256 to I think it's 261. So let me open the document camera up and we'll get right going to the book. On your work doc, you can see, past the warm-up, we've looked at the map and the diagram, and you're going to be reading this part afterwards. You're going to be taking notes on information about the Spanish missions, like what they were, their impact, how they changed things, what they did. What were the reasons people revolted and fought against them, and how life changed for some people. And then there's this guy named Juniper Serra you're reading about. And from our textbook, it's going to say one thing, and then we have a copy from this other book called An Indigenous Peoples History of the United States. It's going to say something different about him. So with that, here goes to the book. Spanish missions. The big picture. As you read in chapter 6, the Spanish settled in North America long before the English. You read how this guy, Francisco Coronado, searched for the Southwest for the 7 cities of gold. We didn't read that, but they were looking for gold. Conquistadors looking for gold. They had New Spain included most of Mexico, the Caribbean islands, Central America, and some of the southwestern United States. And they claimed land in Florida to protect their territory. So here goes to the Spanish colonies. So basically there was a rivalry between England, Spain, and France for claiming land in North America. The Spanish colonies. This guy Coronado, he did not find gold, but other Spanish explorers kept on searching. Don Juan de Onate, who was born in Mexico, was one of the last Spanish conquistadors to search for gold in the Southwest. In 1595, he got permission from King Philip III of Spain to build a settlement in the lands of Spanish called New Mexico. So this guy in Spain, the king, said, hey, you can build a settlement, what is now New Mexico. In 1598, he built San Gabriel, where the Rio Grande River and the Chama rivers met. When the Pueblo people fought Spanish claims to their lands, the colonists left San Gabriel. In 1609, they founded Santa Fe, making it New Mexico's capital. So that's how Santa Fe, which is the capital of New Mexico, started. The Spanish missions. During the next 20 years, the Spanish built over 100 settlements, so like small towns called settlements in New Mexico. Many were missions. A mission is a settlement where missionaries live and work. So the missionary are people who are religious and they're trying to spread their religion. The purpose of the missions was to convert, which means change, Native Americans to the Roman Catholic religion. The center of mission life was the Catholic Church. The missions also had farms, ranches, orchards, workshops, and sleeping quarters. You can see what most Spanish missions in the Southwest look like in the diagram on page 258. So we already looked at that a little bit. Spain's colonies in the Southwest were connected to Mexico by El Camino Real. El Camino Real means the royal road in Spanish. Part of this road began as Native American trails. Onate turned it into a major route between New Mexico and Mexico. Many Spanish missions were built along this road. So basically, these missions were like little towns, and missionaries lived there. And these people were trying to spread their religion. They were trying to change Native Americans to join their religion, which was called the Roman Catholic religion. Here's in the next page a picture of the mission, of a sample mission. So you can see there's different parts to it. It says Pope and the Pueblo Revolt. So the Pueblo were the Native Americans who lived there for hundreds of years. And you're going to find out how did they respond to the Spanish settlers. The Spanish and the Pueblo. Onate met with Pueblo leaders in their kivas. Read this account of one meeting. How do you think the Pueblo reacted to Onate's speech? So this is a speech that this guy was said to have given. He told them that they had been sent by the most powerful king and ruler in the world, Don Philip, king of Spain, who desired especially to serve God our Lord and to bring about the salvation of their souls, but he wished also to protect and bring justice to them, as he was doing for the natives of the East and West Indies. To this he sent Spaniards from such distant lands to theirs at enormous expense and great effort. By agreeing to be ruled by Spain, they would live in peace, justice, and orderliness, protected from their enemies. So basically, the people from Spain were like, hey, we're here. We're saving you all. We think our lives are better than yours and we can save you. They said, we can protect you and we will have you change from whatever beliefs you have to our religion. And this is what they were saying. They said, we are powerful and we are taking over and we're going to help you as long as you follow exactly what we say. At first, many Pueblo took the food, clothing, and shelter the missions gave them. But under Spanish rule, more people than ever went hungry. For centuries, like hundreds of years, Pueblo farmers had given part of their crops to help the needy, so people who needed food. Now they also had to give a part to the Spanish. So the Pueblo would always give extra food to the people who were poor, but now the Spanish were there, they had to give them their extra food. The Spanish often forced the Pueblo to work for them without pay. They punished the Pueblo for keeping their own religion. So basically, the people from Spain said, hey, you have to work for us for no money, and we're going to punish you if you still practice your own religion. The Pueblo revolt to fight back against something. By the 1670s, thousands of Pueblo people had become Catholics, but most of them also kept their traditional religion. This angered the Spanish governor Antonio de Otermin. In 1675, he put 47 Pueblo religious leaders in jail. One of them was named Pope. When the Pueblo threatened to leave the missions, these leaders were freed. As soon as Pope was set free, he began planning a rebellion. Pope told Pueblo leaders that they had to force the Spanish to leave. He got the Pueblo to work with the Apache Native Americans who lived in the countryside. By 1680, the Pueblo were united. Runners brought knitted cords to Pueblo villages to show how many days were left until the revolt. On August 10, 1680, the Pueblo attacked and the Spanish fled New Mexico. So they used this secret way of communicating. They had cords and there were knots. And this is saying that they assert however many knots there were would say how many days there was till their revolt. So they communicated in secret to plan their attack. Here's the map we looked at. You can see what is now Texas, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. And here's the Spanish missions and settlements. The Spanish return. So the people from Spain were sent out, but now they come back. The Spanish wanted to take back New Mexico. Diego de Vargas led an army of about 200 there in 1692. Without firing a shot, Vargas convinced 23 Pueblo villages to return to Spanish rule. So this guy from Spain shows up, and somehow, without even any shooting, he gets the villages to go back under the rule of him and the people from Spain. How did this guy Vargas do it? In 12 years, much had changed. Pope and other Pueblo leaders had died. The Pueblo were no longer united, yet they had still won an important victory. In return for peace, Vargas agreed to let the Pueblo live apart from the Spanish and keep their own religion. Here's information about Texas and California missions. In the 1680s, the Spanish also began settling in the part of New Spain that is now Texas. The settlements were built to keep the French explorers and traders out of the area. The missions around what is today the city of San Antonio became known as the Alamo chain. The area along the Pacific coast was the last part of New Spain to be settled. In 1769, a Spanish missionary named Father Juniper Serra walked from Mexico to the land that the Spanish called California. That year, Father Serra, they call him Father because he was like a religious leader, and this is him right there on this picture. He founded San Diego, the first mission in California. So this is saying the city of San Diego now, it started as a mission from the Spanish missionaries. By 1823, there were 21 missions there. As you can see from the map on page 260, missions stretched as far north as present-day San Francisco. Father Serra believed that the Native Americans should have their own lands and crops so that poverty will not make them leave the mission. So this is saying that this guy was like, hey, we should have enough land for the Native Americans and crops so they will not leave the mission. So he wanted to get the Native Americans to live at his missions. Why it matters. So this is summing it up. In the struggle between the Native Americans and the Europeans, the Pueblo victory was only one event. It did not stop Spanish settlement. By 1800, the Spanish controlled much of what is now the United States. Both Native Americans and Spanish influences can still be seen in these areas. Taos, a city in New Mexico, has a Pueblo name. San Antonio, Texas, has a Spanish name. So this is basically saying that Spain essentially colonized parts of the West, okay, and what is now the United States, but these were not part of the United States yet. So Texas was not yet a colony in the 1700s, and these were certainly not yet. And we're going to go to your paper now. We're going to read a different account about this man named Father Serra. So in your packet, please go to these pages. And this is from this book. It's called An Indigenous People's History of the United States. I'm going to start right where it says this. The Franciscan friar Junipero Serra established the mission of San Diego later that year. Many other missions followed, all protected by military installations called presidios. So circle or box in the word San Diego. Between 1769 and 1823, 21 Franciscan missions were established along a north-south road that Spanish called El Camino Real, which spanned more than 500 miles in Western California. Underline this. This is the road, basically, and they made a bunch of different missions. The Camino Real served the interests of the military, the settlers, the miners, and the missionaries. Serra himself traveled between missions with soldiers to kidnap unsuspecting indigenous individuals and families and take them to the nearest missions to be made into Christian converts and laborers. Laborer means a worker. So this is saying that this guy would kidnap Native Americans who did not suspect him, and he would take them and their families to go work on the missions, to convert their religion, to change their religion, and to make them work. And then this is an excerpt from one of his diaries. He wrote, "When one fled between their hands, they caught the other. The soldiers caught them. They would tie them, and it was all necessary, for even bound, he defended himself that they should not bring him, and flung himself on the ground with such violence that he scraped and bruised his thighs and knees. But at least they brought him. He was most frightened and very disturbed." So he's writing about when they caught Native Americans, and Native Americans tried to escape. And he said, well, the soldiers kept at it, and they took them, and they brought them to the missions. The violence these indigenous people experienced did not end with their capture. Accounts from that time show repeatedly why so many mission Indians escaped when they could. Mission life was brutal, it was tough. So living on these missions was very tough. Analyses of the bones at the mission burial sites that compare them with the bones found elsewhere show that the bones of those who died at the missions were stunted and smaller than the others. So this sounds like modern science. They've analyzed, probably archaeologists have dug up bones, and found that Native Americans who were forced on these missions, their growth stunted. They were worked hard. They probably weren't given proper nutrition, and they were smaller than other people generally. And you can read more, but this talks about how basically the conditions for Native Americans at these missions were notorious, which means famous for bad reasons. And then they made no changes. So let's see here. And it says there was a fighting back when they tried to take power back from this mission. But basically, you can know from this that these missions were in favor of the Spanish people, and they used Native Americans to do their work, basically like slaves, and they changed their religions and basically took their land. So please make sure you're filling in your notes on your paper. Thank you.